You have a job, you have a family, you have other life responsibilities and obligations that have to take priority over playing the drums. So how do you find time to practice and improve over time when it seems like there is no time? How do you practice when you don't have time to practice? Today, we're going to answer that question and hopefully find some solutions to working on your drum skills in the midst of a busy life. Before we get started though, tell me in the comments below, what is the biggest obstacle for you that keeps you from practicing regularly? Let's get some conversations going. But without further ado, let's take a look at 3 main points that'll help us tackle this really important topic. Welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. This is a channel that is all about giving you the non-glamorous tips and topics of the trade to help you become a better drummer by teaching you the drumming skills that really matter. If that's you and if this is something you're interested in and this video helps you out, I really hope to earn your subscription. Point number 1, you do have time to practice, you just have to make it. You have to create that time. You have to open up that time window in your schedule. Here's the thing, people find time for exercise all the time. People find time to watch Netflix all the time. Most shows on Netflix are either 25 minutes or maybe 45 or 50 minutes. If you have time to watch Netflix, it's safe to say you have time to practice drums. 30 minutes of daily practice actually goes a long way. Don't not practice because you feel like you don't have enough time to practice. Just because you can't sit down for 4 hours and practice for 4 hours doesn't mean that 30 minutes isn't well worth your practice time. What you've got to learn to do here is use the little bits of time that you have. I learned this in college. As a music major, I had the regular college class load everybody else had, but I also had all these rehearsals throughout the day and lessons, and I was getting ready for recitals and concerts and whatnot. And so I had to make the effort to practice in every possible little window of time I had, whether it was right before class or between rehearsals or right before my lesson. And I always had to pick something to work on in that little bit of time, whether it was a 10-minute window or a 20-minute window or a 30-minute window. The goal was to be as productive as possible with the time I had, because after class was over at the end of the day, I had to go home when I was commuting, and then I would work on homework at night. But I had to learn to make the most out of those little bits of time, and that's what we're talking about here. Now, once you've found the time, you've got to know what to practice. That is equally important. So our second point here is know what to practice. Not knowing what to practice leads to huge wastes of time and inefficiency because you don't have goals and you don't know what you're working on, and so you end up not making progress, so you lose motivation, and then at that point it's a downward spiral and we're back to square one. So once we've found our time, we've got to know what to do with it. How do we know what to practice? We've got to evaluate, diagnose, and prescribe. By evaluating, we're videoing or recording ourselves playing, and then we're going back and we're watching it so we can watch ourselves objectively and say, okay, this needs work, that needs work. Now it's easy to get real depressed about this. Oh man, all my playing needs work. It's just all bad. I need to work on my hands and my feet. I just need to be better. Okay, well, trust me, we've all gone down that road and we've all said, man, everything I'm playing sounds bad. I got to work on everything. But that doesn't work when we're talking about practicing, because you can't practice all of that in one practice session. You've got to take things one at a time. So we've got to diagnose. We've got to pick one thing to work on. Not 2 things, not 3 things, just one thing. We're going to pick one thing we're going to focus on. For our example, we'll say that our one thing is unstable, slow singles. We'll say we're playing a slow groove and our singles just aren't working. They're too clumsy. They're not consistent. They're not smooth. We want to smoothen those out. That's a really good one thing to pick because that's something that will increase the level of all of your playing by working on it. Next, we have to prescribe. What course of action do we prescribe for fixing our problem? What's our solution going to be? What are our goals? How are we going to fix this? Well, talking about the unstable slow singles, I'd say focus on loose grip. Practice in front of a mirror. That would be ideal. Watch what your hands are doing. Make sure that you're staying nice and loose and utilizing the rebound of the stick. Make sure that your technique is not inhibiting what the stick naturally wants to do. Practice very slowly, playing loud and playing soft at every dynamic level, then gradually bring the tempo up, focusing on keeping things consistent, hand-to-hand, dynamic-wise, and locked with the metronome time-wise. Now that we have this specific thing to focus on, we can actually get a lot done even in just 15 minutes. So we've now made our time to practice, we now know what we're going to practice, but we need to be efficient in our practicing. So our third point is efficiency in practicing, which I like to tie in with the 80-20 rule. Maybe you've heard of this. The 80-20 rule is a principle that states, for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. This rule is also known as the Pareto Principle, named after the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto. You Italians out there can correct me on my pronunciation if I'm wrong. This principle is mentioned a lot in business, where a lot of times it'll mean something like 80% of the revenue comes from only 20% of the clients. So you can probably see where I'm going with this in terms of practicing. I've known in my observations and in researching this and talking about this with other people, it's safe to say that 80% of the practicing only generates 20% of the actual results. Or I think to clarify it further, we can switch it around because this principle works both ways. 80% of the progress comes from only 20% of the time spent practicing. To clarify further, I'm saying that we waste 80% of our practice time. Most of our time doesn't actually generate results. We're either, getting warmed up on the kit, playing whatever stuff that we actually don't really need to practice, or we're procrastinating what we know we need to practice and saving that for our last 10 minutes, or we're playing fast licks around the kit because it's fun and it makes us feel good about ourselves, even though we're probably never actually going to use that in the real world. All these things are a lot of fun, and I'm not saying don't have fun in your practicing, but if you're going to have fun with all that, do that after you focus on the one thing that you know you need to work on. That way you can be productive and efficient, and if you're short on time, you're able to still work on what you've got to work on and then have fun. So let's circle back to that first point about making time to practice, and let's sort of recap this and provide a practical example. So let's say that we need 30 minutes of productive practice. Well, the 80-20 rule would lead us to believe that in order to get that 30 minutes of solid practice, we actually need a 2.5 hour block of time, because 30 minutes is 20% of 2.5 hours, and so if only 20% of our time is going to end up productive, then it's safe to say that's how much time we need in order to get that 30-minute productivity. But of course, what if we could eliminate the fluff, eliminate all the waste of time, and get that 30 minutes of hyper-focused, productive, efficient practice in only 30 minutes? This is very possible to do. We just have to stay hyper-focused on the task at hand and not get sidetracked. That means putting our phone in the other room so we're not getting social media or news notifications, so that we're not getting calls or texts. We can put that out of our mind, put the rest of the world out of our mind, and just focus us, our pair of sticks, our pad, our drum, whatever, and a metronome. Is this the fun, easy way to practice? No, of course not. But when we have other important things to do that are demanding our time, and we only have so much time to play drums, we've got to be more efficient and more productive in practicing. Our time is limited, so we need to use it wisely. That's also a good life guideline as well. So today has certainly been a very conceptual discussion, but it's also one with a lot of practical application. So my challenge to you is this: see what you can actually get done in 30 minutes of focusing on that one specific task that you're going to practice. You'd be very surprised. But most importantly, stay on top of the things in life you've got to stay on top of, whether it's your job or your career, the things that you want to stay on top of, like your family and other hobbies. We want to be able to get better at the drums without that eating up the rest of our life. And we want to be able to spend time on the things that really matter in life while not having to neglect our passion for the drums. You may have a really busy life that hardly allows time for music, but try devoting just a little bit of that time to it every day. Document your progress, write down what you're working on, progress that you've made, set goals, use that as inspiration and motivation so you've always got that drive to keep going, keep working on it, even in those little bits of time every day. With steady increments of focused, productive practice every day, focusing on one specific task at a time, you'll be able to get results much faster, I guarantee you. Not to mention you'll be able to get better at the drums even in the midst of a busy life. By the way, I'd love to make more videos along these lines. I think this is a really important, really interesting topic, and it's something that I've faced a lot and something that I've gained a lot of experience with. So if you'd like to see more of this and see more along the lines of how to practice and how do I know what to practice and all of those sort of subtopics within this, let me know in the comments. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and subscribers, thanks for watching my videos and for supporting this channel. And if you haven't subscribed, I really hope this video helped you out, or some of my other videos on the channel might have helped you out as well. I really hope to earn your subscription. Thanks guys, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.